Falcons face a tough task on Sunday, traveling to San Francisco to take on old friend Kyle Shanahan. We'll talk about what to expect with the Falcons and the 49ers next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Boy, I tell you what, got a fancy brand new desk here.
Moving on up.
I really feel like this is like becoming a real show somewhere along the way. You got all this fancy equipment now. We're farther away from each other than we used to be. That's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And now I'm sure you probably thought it was weird to always be sitting right there on top of me as it is. We got a lot more space, a lot more room to spread out here. So
I'm sure you feel the same way, because sometimes my havoc meter kind of goes up. I get a little passionate, so it
listen, I appreciate that. I like the idea of a little energy. I think that's always a lot of fun. And obviously, we're going to bring a lot of energy to you all here over the course of the next hour, talking about the Falcons and the 49ers on Sunday. And my contention, I know you and I have been around and around about this. I do get all that. My contention that Atlanta has a lot to gain on Sunday, but not by winning. Not by winning. Atlanta's got 3 games left. Last year, Atlanta won all 3 of its final remaining games to go from the 5th pick to the 14th pick. And this year, sitting at 8th right now with the tiebreaker against Jacksonville, hard to see Atlanta gaining much by winning, especially this week, just given the fact that when it comes to playoff positioning and things like that, beating San Francisco would actually help New Orleans, and Falcons fans don't like doing that. Simple question for Falcons fans who are watching us right now. We'll take these comments on Facebook and YouTube. Are you rooting for Atlanta to win on Sunday? Because I honestly don't know how you could be, or why you would be.
Absolutely, yes, I'm rooting for the Falcons. Number one, I would like to see this team finish with a level of respect for the organization. I don't want them to be dead last. I don't want them to, finish last in the NFC South. I want to see these guys come out, show what they can do and compete. Now, here's another thing. I want the Falcons to win. Let's just me be a player. Man, things are just better when you go out winning. Even though, you're one of the worst teams in the league, as a player, Brandon, you still want to go out like that. And then from Dan Quinn, let's speak from Dan Quinn's standpoint. I went out. I'm going to try to, make a decision. I have to make a decision. I know a lot of folks ain't going to like it, but Mr. Blank, DQ was like, I want to win out. I want Brandon to get mad. That's Dan Quinn saying, I want Brandon Adams to be mad because they kept me.
I might, listen, that might be another reason for me to sort of add to the category of what Atlanta has to win, draft positioning, everything else. The last thing I want this to be for Arthur Blank, last thing I want this to be, I don't disrespect Dan Quinn, but the last thing I want this to be for anybody in this discussion is, maybe Dan Quinn's the right guy. Because I agree with what somebody said in our comment section on our show on Monday. When you have nothing to play for, when the team you're playing has no reason to take you seriously, those games are easier to win. Those games are easier to perform than week 1 at Minnesota when everybody's got something to play for. Early season game against Tennessee when everybody's got something to play for. Those games are more difficult to win because you're getting the best shot of your opponent. You ought to have your best shot out there because you've got a lot in front of you. But these kind of, for lack of a better phrase, garbage time type games, these games are much easier to have good performances in. The team they played last Sunday had no coach, for goodness sake.
But you did speak on Tennessee, though.
Yeah.
Tennessee's pretty daggone good, as we've seen.
Yeah, they've gotten better now.
Yeah, they've gotten better. But you know what? There is no pressure on the Falcons. You're right. So the expectations this week against San Fran are literally 0 outside of the organization. Yeah. So remember, you got young guys that are still trying to evaluate. You got Lindstrom now at guard finally getting some playing time. You still evaluating McGarry. You know what I mean? So you got Ridley out. You got different guys stepping up. So part of this is it's an evaluation.
I understand that.
There is some positivity from the Falcon standpoint that they can gain if some of these young guys step up. But, again, it comes down to pride. This tells me a lot. If them dudes come out and lay down, that's just weak.
Well, believe it or not, at least on Facebook, I'll check YouTube in a second, folks are actually more optimistic about the game than I would have expected. Dubsky Maine LaFleur says Falcons with the upset, calls it an easy game. How about this from Matt Evans saying he's flying to San Francisco from Hawaii for the game, hope he can pull off an upset. So he's feeling pretty good about it, so much so that he's going to the game. Marcus Alexander says there might be a Falcons upset on Sunday. Falcons have played better on the road this year. Brett Richardson feeling a little bit different, saying the Niners are going to embarrass us. Terrell Pridgeon Sr. says, Falcons are winning this week. It sounds crazy, but we win. Hashtag rise up. One more, Calvin Azell Jr. says, Falcons should win this game. They know Kyle Shanahan's offense. So, believe it or not, over here on Facebook, there's actually a little more optimism about the game than you might would have expected.
All right, what I feel on Facebook and also YouTube Live, I feel the double H syndrome. You got homers and you got haters. Now, the homers are saying, hey, we're going to upset them. But let me tell you, for the homers, I got a reason why there could be an upset. The Falcons are going in there with a running game with confidence. Mm-hmm. The only way you're going to beat this San Francisco team, you got to have confidence and you got to be able to run, or Matt Ryan's going to struggle against a ferocious front four. Now, we got the homers, right? Now we got the haters. The haters are going to say, well, the Falcons have no chance. Well, I absolutely disagree. Yeah. Any team, any given weekend, we've heard that cliche, but let me tell you why. Let me explain the cliche, what can happen, right? So the haters are absolutely disappointed, really, from a standpoint of what the Falcons have been doing, right? Yeah. So I got a guy who's a homer. Oh, they're going to win. Now the haters are saying that because they think San Fran has no weaknesses. San Fran beat the Saints, right? But San Fran, their quarterback is suspect. San Fran has struggled running the ball in big games, right? So to me, this is a big game for Frisco because I can tell you this right now, because of the head coach's, relationship with the Falcons. To me, that's the difference. So I think the haters are wrong and the homers are wrong, and I'm staying somewhere in between. So that's my thought.
I like Solution Sports over here on YouTube, who says 49ers coming to this game not playing down to the competition. They need the game for playoff seeding, so the Falcons need to make them earn it. And I agree with Solution on this, and it kind of goes back to what you said. I want to evaluate Chris Lindstrom. I want to evaluate, the running game some more. I want to evaluate a lot of things in this game, what the wide receiver core looks like with no Calvin Ridley involved. There's a lot of evaluations you want to see. I love Solution Sports' phrase here of make them earn it. I don't want to see Atlanta lay down and die. I hope Atlanta, doesn't lose 56-0. At the same time, my mind's on 2020. My mind's in April in the draft. My mind's on the talent acquisition that Atlanta needs to get better. My mind's on the coaching changes that Atlanta needs to get better. I think really anything, not just against San Francisco here, but remainder of the season for Atlanta, I think anything for the positive on the field runs the risk of confusing the organization. And I'm not quite so sure this organization is not confused by its future right now. I think it runs the risk of confusing the organization about the right step forward. I want to kick all of the legs out from underneath the stool. I don't want anyone in Flowery Branch to be able to say, or the Arthur Blank Family Foundation offices in Buckhead, I don't want anyone to be able to say, well, you know what, maybe 2020, bring the same crew back. Maybe things will be better this time. I don't want there to be any reasonable discussion of that taking place. And if you're a Falcon fan, I think you ought to join me in saying that.
I want to see absolutely craziness because I want to see Dan Quinn win. I want to see what happens. This would be This would be the most interesting, one of the most interesting stories in a long time if Arthur Blank were to keep him. Because from a public relations standpoint, you and I have talked about it'd be a public relations nightmare trying to get the fans excited.
Yeah.
But because I'm more on the player side, I have to sort of side with Dan Quinn, right?
I understand that.
So I want to see the players win out. And if Dan Quinn, if they win out, it could be interesting. But percentages say, percentages say that coaches get fired under these circumstances. But, hey, man, I want the players to have a good ending and then see what happens after that.
50 Millie on YouTube brings up a good point. He says, I think this is going to be the best game Quinn has coached this year. He says because he might get fired next week. So, obviously, what's going to happen after that's going to be a storyline. But in terms of this being a game in which Quinn's motivated for, he has to know that people look at that NFC Championship run in 2016 and say, well, it was really Kyle Shanahan who was the architect of all that, and Quinn was just kind of along for the ride. Falcons' defense, other than Vick Beasley, wasn't very good back in 2016. So he's got to know that's being said. He's got to know that's being talked about. Given the fact that Quinn, like any coach, has a little ego, given the fact that Quinn wants to kind of go out there and sort of prove what he's all about, does he want to shut up the people who think that Shanahan's the genius? How much does he want to shut up the people who think that Falcons wouldn't have won the NFC that year if it hadn't been for Shanahan pushing the buttons for that Falcons offense? The fact of the matter is the football world thinks Shanahan is a smarter and better coach than Dan Quinn. How motivated do you think Dan is by that?
Well, I'm sure he might not say it, but everybody wants to, beat the guy that they're saying was the catalyst behind the Super Bowl that you were the head coach. Now, from Dan Quinn's standpoint, Dan knows the inner workings of how it worked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of other coaches that get involved. We give Shanahan credit. But if I'm Dan Quinn, that motivation to me isn't what you necessarily need. To me, it comes down to ultimately, a lot of these guys are the same guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That were there when Shanahan was
right.
there. But the thing is, you see now, they're not getting the same production on offense.
Coaching matters.
No question. Coaching does matter. So Dan Quinn, he's going to go out there motivated no matter what. And my thing with Dan is that just stay who you are, though. I mean, from the standpoint of, be a tough, hard-nosed coach. You know what I mean? And as you see, he's not flinching. But one thing I know about Q, man, Q to shaking hands, and every time somebody comes to the sideline, I mean, hey, good job. He's become the hype man. I mean, you ever notice that, P? You got to notice it.
Yeah, no,
every time anything happens to me, again, you want to be that guy, but it's just interesting, man, the situation where Shanahan, his first year here, was looked at, as a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People couldn't stand Shanahan. Then that next year, and still in my opinion, I'll say this, I just don't remember a lot of people celebrating him when he left. Mm-hmm. I remember everybody wanting him to get, not everybody. Yeah. I remember some of us looked at it from the standpoint of, oh man, it's good for him to get out of town, because if Shanahan stays here, and he's still here with the Falcons, man, can you imagine the negativity that would have came the year after that?
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because I actually wanted to bring that up. So I think that one of the things that I think most Falcons fans would probably acknowledge, even though this is not a fun thing to bring up right now, is that the 28-3 comeback by the Patriots is still a little bit of a dark cloud that hangs over the team since then. And it's not necessarily easy to know what you do to exercise those demons. Was it the Saints a couple years ago? Who was it that had the funeral for something? Or wasn't there an NFL team that had a funeral? Like a fake funeral.
Yeah, they buried something. God,
right? I don't remember who.
It wasn't the Vikings. I know what you're talking about.
It's somebody. For some reason, I want to say that may have been the Saints. But for whoever it was, we kind of know this idea of, hey, here's the old idea. Here's the old thing that was kind of hanging around here. And we're getting rid of that ghost. We're getting rid of those feelings. We're kind of rebooting. And for Atlanta, it's sort of hard to know how you do that, just given the fact that, every 28-3 joke in the world gets used all the time. You've said it before. The Saints kind of poke at the Falcons for 28-3 so much, you'd think they were the ones that actually played in the game, where they were sitting at home watching on TV like everybody else that night. So the question kind of becomes, what do you do to get 28-3 out of this organization's DNA? How do you flush that and move on? I think it's somehow, some way, you've got to try to establish a narrative that Kyle Shanahan's the one that's to blame. It wasn't the Falcons that lost. It was Kyle Shanahan, even though it was Atlanta that lost. It was Kyle Shanahan that didn't run the ball.
But that was the feeling. After the Super Bowl, there was a lot of, a lot of people said the same thing. Well, man, if Shanahan would have did this. So, no, I agree with you.
So think about this from a public relations standpoint for a moment. I feel like somehow you got to get the label of Super Bowl choker off the Falcons and put it on Kyle Shanahan. Because Shanahan now has got a brand new team. He's got a lot of shiny new toys. He's one of the NFC favorites. It is a very good chance that his 49ers team will be playing deep into January. Somehow, though, I feel like that when you're talking 49ers, apart from the Falcons, not mentioning them at all, one of the things I don't think you're going to hear enough of is, well, will Shanahan choke in a big spot this time? Because let's not forget the last time he was in a Super Bowl, he could have, sauced the game away, could have put it away, iced the game by running the football and setting up for a field goal. Didn't choose to do that, and the rest is history. Somehow Atlanta lives with that as its own failure, whereas Kyle Shanahan has sort of moved up, moved on, and moved out. I feel like the right thing to do here for the media and for Falcons fans going to push this, it's Shanahan who takes the blame for 28-3 more so than the organization, because at that point in time, the guy who was driving that truck was Shanahan. It was his decision not to run the ball and not kick the field goal.
Well, it's just the same thing with the quarterback. When things are going good, the quarterback gets all the credit. When things are going bad, he also takes all the blame.
Yeah.
In this situation, things are going good for Shanahan.
Yeah.
Right? Things are going good in San Francisco, so everybody's looking at him as a guru.
Right.
When they think of Shanahan in Atlanta, they just talk about how many points per game he put up. I have seen it.
Yeah.
They talked about, man, when he was in Atlanta, he was a catalyst. Matt Ryan also was what that year? He was the MVP, right?
Yeah.
So think of all the things that he accomplished. But again, when he left town, that gave him reason. He just left all that behind. And you're right. He left all that baggage here for Atlanta to deal with. You know what I'm saying? Even though it wasn't all his fault. But you're right. When Shanahan left, no one says Shanahan 28-3 in the Falcons, right? All they say is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, you touched on something about getting rid of the 28-3. The only way they're going to get rid of that demon is win a Super Bowl. And let me give you a good example. I don't know the guy's name, and you'll know. The Boston Red Sox, the guy who let the ball go through his legs.
Bill Buckner, yeah.
Listen, until the Boston Red Sox won the World Series, that narrative was huge, right? And that was one of the narratives. If he makes that play, we do what? We win it all.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, the Falcons are Buckner, and this is that same kind of legacy.
So that's a great point. It's a great point. I love the way you say that. In this case, the Falcons are Buckner. I guess my point is, wouldn't it be more fair for Kyle Shanahan to be Buckner? In the case of the 86 World Series where Buckner lets the ball go through his legs, in the case of this, the Bill Buckner figure in that Super Bowl loss, isn't that Kyle Shanahan? Shouldn't he be the guy that let the ball go through his legs because he's the guy that didn't choose to run it? And part of this is Dan Quinn's fault because Quinn had the moment after the game. He could have thrown Shanahan under the bus. And by the way, he knew Shanahan was leaving anyway. You might as well have done that. But honestly, he sort of hemmed and hawed, I think, in terms of establishing that narrative. But I'm 42, so I know who Bill Buckner is. We have younger people who maybe either don't follow baseball, don't know who Buckner is, but it's the perfect comparison. It's the guy that choked in the big spot. I guess what I'm trying to say here is I wish nationally, on behalf of Falcons fans, I wish nationally there was more of a thought that the Bill Buckner for the Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan.
But I just think, again, it comes back to, also, the history of the organization before that.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's
so
true.
There's so many, in certain situations for the Falcons fans who would know this, they know, what was it, the 1980 playoffs where, you know what I mean? Where
that's a little too young. That's a little too old for me, but I know the game you're talking about where you lost to Dallas.
We lost to Dallas, and we were the best team in the NFL supposedly that year.
I have definitely heard that story a lot, although I'm not quite old enough to remember the game.
So another bad moment in Falcons history. In 1998, we get to the Super Bowl, magical year. No matter what happens in the Super Bowl,
that one I have keen memories of.
At the end of the day, it's arguably the best year at that time in Falcons franchise history, and it's still one of the all-time great seasons.
Yeah.
But at the end of the season, Falcons were celebrating. We get to the Super Bowl. Eugene Robinson gets arrested.
Biscayne
right.
Boulevard.
So now, when the season's over, when the cheering stops, what people always say? Man, you guys had a great year, Chuck. Man, but if it wasn't for Eugene.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Eugene, but so even though no question Eugene wasn't at his best, but Eugene had nothing to do with me missing a tackle on Terrell Davis.
Right. Yeah.
Eugene had nothing to do with Chris Chandler missing Jamal Anderson in zone. Chris, So when you look at how that blame thing goes,
I agree. I agree.
What I mean? It's the same it's the same thing. It's really the same thing.
I think that's a good point. All right. It's AJC Falcons News now. We're sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite's the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories. I want to get a lot of comments on this topic, on really anything for the game on Sunday. Cody Paul says, what about the Falcons giving up 31 unanswered points? Super Bowl victory is the only thing that gives us any redemption. I think that's probably, fair, and I think that's kind of what Chuck's saying right here, too, that really the 28-3 thing kind of goes in with some other demons that sort of still need to be exercised. I guess there's a sort of a fundamental unfairness to me that Shanahan has moved on and kind of left all this behind when his DNA is all over that failure. Now, you can say defense gave up too many unanswered to New England. You're right about that. And you can say that there's a lot of things that could have gone down to make that game, result different than it was. For the Atlanta fan, he has dealt with that with his own team a bunch. I think Shanahan has somehow escaped that. So when he's playing these playoff games, I better hear Joe Buck. I better hear Troy Aikman. I better hear, analysts on the other networks. I better hear somebody saying, let's see how Shanahan handles late game situations because the last time he was in a big spot.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying as far as Shanahan is concerned, but I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I mean, more like.
And by the way, I think he's a good coach. I do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it goes back to me more to do with the Falcons' history that gives him a pass. And a lot of it to me also, I'm not trying to be, again, I said a Debbie Downer.
No, I understand.
I missed on the things that we talked about with the Mike Vick situation, a national embarrassment member for the organization, as well as Arthur Blank, right? Remember Arthur Blank, Mike Vick, he does everything to help Mike, and at the end, Mike leaves him hanging, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean, ultimately. Right. All right, the Jim Moore fiasco. I mean, Bobby Petrino. This organization, since Arthur Blank has been the owner, has been the epitome of dysfunction. And when you get to that point where you're just thinking you're over the top. So I think in the beginning, everything was so good. Hey, man, we're going to sell tickets. We're going to be this. So all of a sudden, to me, the organization, when you look at all those little things, I mean, it's hella things that are, these are national stories.
I agree.
Right? So then you're like, okay, the Falcons, or even the Falcons get the punt block in New Orleans, they win. So many crazy things. So now you look at the Falcons and the organization. So people are sitting back saying, yeah, y'all supposed to be this, how you finally get there and then you choke. So I agree. There's up until the Falcons win it all, every coach, anything that ultimately happens here until we win a Super Bowl, they're going to get a pass. There's going to be an out like Shanahan because the magnitude of what happened in that game, people look back and say, oh, that's just how the Falcons do. They choke in big games.
So I'm going to give Falcons fans some credit because I'm trying to give them a scapegoat for what happened, and Falcons fans don't want to take it. Wesy B on YouTube, for instance, saying it was the fault of the damn prevent defense we played the entire second half. Still can't believe we couldn't get one stop. So I'm trying to offer an out here and say, hey, why don't you hang that Super Bowl loss on the dude that tucked tail and ran to San Francisco? Falcons fans say, no, they want to keep that blame right here. It's actually pretty interesting. Let me get a few more comments coming in here as well, including on the game itself. And somebody was talking about some of the defensive holes that maybe it's Solution Sports mentioning this. So you've got a D Ford hamstring issue. Richard Sherman not playing in this game, although he does expect to play the following week. Quallen Alexander also out for San Francisco as well. So Atlanta's got its injuries. Desmond Trufant's season is done. Calvin Ridley not playing. But San Francisco also has some injuries as well coming into Sunday's game.
Yeah, they do. Richard Sherman, he's a leader, and I think that, to me, that's going to be minimized because they got a defensive front. D Ford ain't hardly played all year. D Ford is the highest paid nickel pass rusher in the NFL. But the Falcons got a shot. Now, I'm not ever going to say a team like the Falcons don't have a shot because we looked at Tampa last week. They be knocked off Indianapolis, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, any given weekend, but the Falcons are good enough to beat San Fran. But we have guys that aren't playing. They have guys that aren't playing. But this time of year, those guys are going to be licking their chops because they absolutely, I'm sure, most of those guys think they can handle the Falcons.
Rob Bridges has a funny line. You made it the comparison to Kyle Shanahan and Bill Buckner, or the Falcons and Bill Buckner. He says at least Buckner had a chance to make the play. Shanahan just took the first baseman completely out of the game. Which is a very funny comparison, Rob.
You're right.
I like that. Let me get a few more Facebook comments here as well. Daniel Taylor and Terry Locklear says we need Chase Young. Listen, at this point in time, that's a Hail Mary pass as it is. But that kind of goes back to the topic we said to start the show. There ain't but one way to get Chase Young. Falcons don't have enough assets to trade for him. If you want Chase Young, you're going to have to get Chase Young the hard way.
What, trade up everything?
No, you're gonna have to fall on your face for Chase. At this point in time, that ship's probably sailed.
It's too late. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Those empty hollow wins against Carolina may have prevented that from happening.
You know what the crazy part is? Thinking about this team, 3 years ago, we thought we had the nucleus. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Vick, you got Tack, and now we're sitting here. It's amazing to me. We're sitting here in 2019, and we're talking about we needed to Chase Young when the Falcons specifically targeted 2 pass rushers for this team to change the dynamic of the franchise. There's something to be said about that, and it's a lot deeper than
it's a fair point.
You know what I'm saying? What we're talking about.
No, that's a totally fair point. Yeah. We're going to talk about Hernando over here in the comment section. Let me find Hernando's comment. It's pretty good. Comments coming in pretty fast here on the discussion. I've lost Hernando. Hernando Carithers on the Facebook comment section says, wish the Falcons could have kept Tevin Coleman. That's the other comparison that goes on in a game like this. Tevin out there in San Francisco now. I think it speaks to, now last week's obviously a step in the right direction, at least seemingly. But I think it speaks to that dissatisfaction that Falcons fans have with that run game, that Atlanta hasn't found that run game. They chose Freeman over Coleman. They gave Freeman some money, built the running component around him, and that has certainly left a lot to be desired for many Falcons fans.
Well, how do you give Freeman all that money, then validate it by saying, well, he's not good enough by giving Coleman money? To me, it just wasn't enough money in the backfield. So I don't think, there was an option to really get Coleman, because you got, what is that? I mean, God, it's been $20-something million in running backs.
Right.
And then the expectations were for Freeman to be that guy. So some of the things that were projected come down to personnel, but I tell you what it also came down to, and defending the Falcons somewhat, you expected Freeman to be that guy. And he proved at one point he could be that guy. All of a sudden he got the money, he got the bag, then all of a sudden he was on the sideline injured. So so some of the things the organization couldn't control and Coleman had to go.
Mark Brantley on Facebook brings up a pretty good point. We debated this a little bit a few days ago. The Falcons really maybe not as fully committed as some people would like to see in seeing some of these young players playing, whether it's John Kaminsky or Dieter Sanat, or you got a long list here of guys that
Sanat, he still plays with the Falcons. I ain't seen Sonata all year.
But that kind of goes back to what a lot of people are saying. It's like,
man.
Why not give some young guys a chance to play a little bit more? And you said it pretty succinctly on Monday, because Dan Quinn's trying to win and keep his job. He's not looking to do spring training out here with a lot of these young guys.
Hell, the young guys playing. Hey.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this for Vick? 5th year or something?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Vick, I get Kaminsky in there. Vick's been doing a good job lately. I mean, getting sacks, but I mean, what's in the bucket?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, when the Falcons were struggling, had lost 6 games in a row?
Mm-hmm.
When the Falcons had lost multiple games in a row, maybe that was the time they tried some guys, but to me it says, I mean, ain't much in the bucket right now for the Falcons, because when you lose that many games, they were putting a few guys in. I seen Kaminsky. I ain't seen no plays now. Dedrick Sanat, that's the first time we mentioned him all year.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that's crazy. What was he, a 3rd rounder? That's unbelievable.
By the way, Blake Robinson says, I truly hope the 49ers are sleepwalking. This is a week following a big win. They're returning home to play a, quote, inferior team. The way the Falcons can stun them like they stunned the Saints. So I guess I'll ask you the same question that I asked about Quinn a moment ago. Does Shanahan have extra motivation because this is Atlanta? Does he have any bad taste for having worked with Dan Quinn? Does he want to stick it to Quinn for any reason?
Yes, no question. I don't think it necessarily has to do with Quinn. I think it has to do with he coached there.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with that he wants to just, everybody wants to whip their former team. But let me tell you who it means more to, believe it or not. He might not say it, but the players are saying, man, let's win one for the coach. And I'm going to tell you this, don't be surprised. Mm-hmm. If they beat the Falcons and whoop the Falcons, you're going to see in that locker room, you're going to see them present him with the game ball.
That's interesting.
This will mean more for the players because they talk about it. I'm just telling you, man, they know where the coach came from. And listen, a lot of guys don't necessarily know it from the standpoint of the Falcons, all the things that happened with Shannon. Most of them guys don't know what happened with the 28-3.
Yeah.
But all they know is their coach was at Atlanta before, and we want to whoop his former team, and they're going to present him with the game ball if that happens.
Corey Carter says about Thomas Dimitroff that he can't seem to make the team better as a whole. 1 year he neglects the center, then seems to remember and gets Mack. Then he neglects the defensive line. Now he's tried to get better on the offensive line, let us lapse in other areas, learn how to multitask Thomas Dimitroff. I mean, that's the one thing that we don't do enough of, because Quinn's the guy you see on TV every Sunday, so we probably end up over-evaluating Quinn's position. We probably, frankly, under-evaluate the scenario involving Thomas Dimitroff. But every time we mention Dan Quinn, we question his job security. I do agree with Corey. I think it's only fair that you also got to question the job security of Thomas Dimitroff there as well. And I think you've got to start questioning the organizational structure that goes on here in terms of, Quinn overseeing the final say in the 53-man roster, Thomas Dimitroff's long-standing relationship as GM. Scott Pioli's not here anymore, but when he was here, what hand he had in all of this. I think the organizational structure in terms of how the players end up on this roster, I think that's something you got to question there as well. And the fact, should Thomas Dimitroff have that role going forward? This has been a guy that Blank has trusted, maybe trusted to a fault, but it is true that as we have these ongoing deliberations about Dan Quinn's future, Thomas Dimitroff's going to be right there in that same discussion.
Well, there's no question, because he's ultimately a part of the decision on making personnel in the draft, and he's overseeing, pro personnel, college personnel. When you look at the development of some of the players, and I guess the best way to look at it from the standpoint of other teams where they are, the guys that they've developed, I just think, everybody's accountable. And I think they'll have to look back and look at the production of the players as if when you drafted them. Yeah. And the Sanats, the Duke Rileys, all these different guys that they've had. I won't say Kaminsky right now. But this goes back to even I can't remember his name, big kid out of Minnesota. Went 2nd round?
Yeah,
anyway.
For sure.
Yeah, but anyway, he was supposed to be the next coming of Aaron Donald.
Right.
So the Falcons don't draft Aaron Donald. They end up drafting Jake Matthews, which, everybody had the intel on it. So there are a few opportunities that I see even as of now that they missed on, but a lot of people did.
By the way, Daniel Taylor and Terry Locklear are also mentioning, let's say the Falcons have the 8th pick. Now, I don't think he's going to be still there at 8. This is just for fun on Friday. I don't think he's going to be there at 8, but let's say he was.
Who?
You drafted Tua Tagovailoa 8th overall?
Man, that's a tough one.
Probably that's not your starting quarterback in 2020. Tua Tagovailoa is not starting for anybody in 2020. The hip injury is, I think the recovery for that's so serious. And even though it's been kind of downplayed now, I don't think Tua Tagovailoa starts in the NFL in 2020. So if you draft him, it's a draft and stash situation. It's a draft and stash. You should not assume any team that drafts Tua Tagovailoa gets a full rookie season out of him. So I don't think 2020 is the year you think about replacing Matt Ryan, but you got to think about replacing him at some point in time. Now, you need a lot of talent. You need a lot of this. You need a lot of that. I think that Tua Tagovailoa, though, is a very interesting prospect.
Yeah, I do too. But I'm not as big on Tua like I was last year. My biggest thing, Tua can't run. I mean, Tua getting chased down. I mean, I never see Tua make, create things with his feet. Mm-hmm. I believe you got to do that now. I mean, I really believe in this new.
You don't make more mobile than you think he is, though.
With the bad hip, you want him running?
Nah,
with the bad ankle, you want him running? Hold up, Tua with the bad ankle 2 times, with the bad hip, the bad shot.
That's a pretty good point. Maybe it's fair to say he used to be mobile.
Yeah, he used to be mobile. But
maybe he used to be mobile.
For me, if I'm the Falcons, I'm not going safety because you can find guys to fit in that need. But for me, I'm going linebacker or defensive line. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Deion Jones.
Yeah.
And I like where the reason why I don't say go D-line, all right, you got Grady, you got Tack. You got to figure it out. Because look, you got Vick Beasley's been here and he hadn't developed from that standpoint. It's okay if you got 2 dominant guys on the D-line, so we need Tack to be dominant. So I don't want to go another D-line. I want to know, next to Deion Jones, if you probably can't sign Devondre Campbell because it's going to be hard, I would like to see them get the best linebacker if he's worthy of a top 10 pick, or go D-line. And let me tell you what else I might do. It might not be sexy for the Falcons fan. Give me one more road grader on offensive line. Now you got 3 guys. Mm-hmm. 3 guys. So I want to go interior. Know what else a lot of it has to do with? God, I'm watching San Fran. I'm watching, I'm watching teams. I'm watching, New England's defense. I'm watching all these defenses that can really help, to me. So I'm going, I want a linebacker. I want me a linebacker that's multifunctional. You know what I mean? That can play outside, that can play inside, but I need a hammer. I need a dog. I need somebody that's going to come off of Grady's butt when he's getting double teamed, make some plays.
By the way, Georgia Boy 17 and a few others on YouTube reminding that the former draft pick out of the University of Minnesota, Rashid Hageman.
Yeah, big shit. He got cut again this year, man.
Yeah, he came back.
Can I tell you a quick story?
By all means.
You got some time?
I got plenty of time.
So, I'm at the Senior Bowl, and Michael like this. I'm at the Senior Bowl. So, no, I'm before the Senior Bowl. So I go to Exos, Arizona, right? The train. Yeah. I'm out there. Todd France, super agent now with CAA, has me out there. So he has this kid Marcus Smith from Louisville, who's a outside linebacker from Louisville, from Carver, from Columbus. We had Lewis Nix, big nose guard, who was projected at that time in the top 10.
Yeah.
He was from Notre Dame. And Brent Urban, big defensive lineman. Now he's with, I think, the Titans anyway, with the Virginia. Then there was a little dude out there that was about 5'11", and his name was Aaron Donald.
Wow.
Right? So I was out there, Todd sends me out there, and I'm training. All these guys are, his clients. So I'm training except Lewis Nix. So I'm training Aaron Donald, right? Yeah. I'm training the AD, and I always remember, I was like, wow, man, this dude, he's focused. And I said, man, does it ever bother you? You won every award in college football. He won every D-line, any kind of award in college football out of Pitt. And when we went there, people said he was the second rounder because he was too short.
Right.
He said, Chuck, I always remember he said, Chuck, I've been 5'11" my whole life. It ain't never affected me.
How about that?
So I'm training this dude, right? Boom, 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 boom. I mean, I'm training him. He is crazy, man. He's motivated. I mean, he's got this alpha dog in him. I'm just telling you. So as Aaron Donald, we end up going to the Senior Bowl. And when we were going to that Senior Bowl, I remember Todd France asked me this. And it's well documented between me and Todd. We've talked about it. And this is when AD does his book, I got to tell him this because Todd, they believed in him.
Yeah.
So he said, so Chuck, what round do you think Aaron Donald should, can he become a first round? He said, well, how high do you think he can go? I said, there's not a number high enough to draft Aaron Donald.
How about that?
So we get to the Senior Bowl. And when I'm there, I just saying, I talked to some people from up in Flowery Branch. I said, y'all need to draft this dude. This dude is I said, this guy's special, man.
Yeah.
And then Brian Cox said, hey, man, no, this other guy, because we're just talking about from Minnesota, said, well, now he's the same guy. And when I tell you it's historical, Aaron Donald ended about 4 careers at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And absolutely annihilated people. It's legendary right now what Aaron Donald did. So I'm standing there in the circle watching this, doing the one-on-one. So I watch I talked to, these guys, the Falcons, TD. I talked to TD about it. So look, so my whole campaign, I talked to Les Snead. He ended up making a decision. Yeah. Different coaches from all around the league. So we get back. And John Kincaid, right? I don't know if I can say radio that from radio host. Okay, not gonna say the number.
No, but
John Kincaid.
Just tell people who he is.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Buck and Kincaid. I went on the radio and said I literally publicly pled for, hey man, please draft Aaron Donald. Please, he's the best thing ever. And every year around this time, John Kincaid says, you know what? I remember on the radio calls to all those guys with all the stations. I begged us to get this kid because I knew what they looked like, and he was special. So this was the last thing I said. I'm gonna move on. I said this on the radio, and I was giving big ups, and they know it, man. It's okay. TD and them know it is what it is, man. Right. Everybody missed on us. It's not just a Falcon thing. Of course. I said, this is what you need to do. They were 3-4 defense, and I want to say Mike Smith was here then. I said, you need to change from the 3-4 and build around Aaron Donald and make him the centerpiece.
Okay.
It never happened. Aaron Donald is the fastest Hall of Fame player in the history of the game. Today, if Aaron Donald retired, I really believe with his numbers now, particularly if he gets another year, I just believe he's on track to be the fastest NFL Hall of Famer ever. Because if Davis from Georgia can go in the Hall of Fame after 6 years, Aaron Donald is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year.
So it's almost
that's the story.
It's almost like you've spent a lot of time studying defensive linemen, and so when you see it go into the Senior Bowl,
I know what they look
it's
like.
Almost like you recognize one when you see one.
I know exactly what they look like. I mean, it doesn't change, and whether it's deep. Listen, I'm not trying to take up the story time, but that same year, D Ford was there. So the same year I worked with D Ford, he was there with Aaron Donald, and it was Stephon Tuitt. I mean, I can name a lot of guys that I tried to send north of Sewanee.
Right.
That, hey, that's what I do. It's part of a service I provide, and I'll still provide it now.
Well, listen, at some point in time, we hope the Falcons either listen to you or sort of figure some of this out on their own, because obviously when you talk about being better in 2020, upgrading in situations like that, I think that's a big part of what Atlanta's still dealing with.
You got to find them.
Yeah.
Look at the Ravens. Look what Ozzie Newsome's done.
Yeah.
Look at the Saints. There's a reason. People, look, when we think of the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm jumping around a little bit because we're talking about its comparison to the Falcons. When you think of the Ravens, you don't think about Super Bowls.
Right.
They won 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
The Baltimore Ravens have been in the league. When did they move the ball? I mean, think about it.
Mid-90s they moved from Cleveland. Yeah.
We've been working on this thing forever, and particularly in this era, the Ravens are in the dance again. So, I mean, personnel matters, and they should be held, all personnel leaders should be held, accountable to.
We got some good YouTube comments. I'm going to take some of those. There's a Falcons coaching rumor I want to get to, but here in our brand new desk, it's sort of hard. I had to reach way over here to get my fancy cooler. Like, we got all kinds of space. This is not something we're used to around here. This is a lot of fun. But here's something you can be used to. I know you're used to getting great in-depth Falcons coverage from the AJC. That's the way to get the most in-depth Falcons coverage. And the way to get the best of the best when it comes to that is by becoming an AJC subscriber. So if you go to the website you see on your screen there, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, and you become an AJC subscriber, you'll have a number of different options to choose from, whether you want the e-paper sent to your device every day, you want the Sunday print along with that e-paper, or if you want to get the print paper sent to your home each and every day, 7 days a week. Whichever option you choose from to become an AJC subscriber, when you sign up for it, as a special thank you to you, we'll give you this officially branded Falcons cooler. You know, the AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons, and the way we celebrate that is with this Falcons branded cooler. So go to subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, and you can become an AJC subscriber. You can get the Falcons cooler, and you can read all about your Dirty Birds each and every day of the week. Of course, it's good to have you with us here on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.
Did you say Dirty Birds?
I did.
Oh, yeah, the organization did bring the Dirty Birds back.
Yeah, listen, people know what the Dirty Birds are. I've always kind of liked that nickname.
For a while, they didn't want to, they tried to separate us from, a little bit. So this year, they needed to bring a dance back. Yeah. I'm thankful for the Atlanta Falcons.
Falcons history is what it is. Like, I'm not that into like the whole pass the magic thing, but Dirty Bird, you better.
Yeah, that's just how it is. You got to accept it.
Yeah.
I know in the beginning they kind of wanted to, change that a little bit, but
right.
This year they said, hey, when the Falcons score, let's bring the Dirty Bird.
I like it. By the way, J.B. Brumfeld, on the subject of potential Falcons draft picks, mentions A.J. Espinoza from Iowa. That's one of those names you're going to hear from. And honestly, the farther you get away from that top 5 pick, the less you're going to hear about the Derek Browns, and the less you're going to hear about certainly the Chase Youngs, and the more you start hearing about guys who played for Iowa.
I got a guy.
All right.
Let me throw it out there.
I do want to hear.
You know who he is, too. I'm about, I say, 4th round. Maybe, I say Mike can move up to the 3rd. Tyler Clark.
I like Tyler Clark.
Put Tyler Clark
Interior
on the nose
pass rusher.
at Georgia next to Grady.
Yeah.
Take up the run. Big space guy. Those are thoughts.
By the way, a lot of kind words here. Antonio Sparks, there's Tyler Clark right there. He had a good year for Georgia this year.
Yeah,
he really
balling.
did. Antonio Sparks, Hal Snipes, some others kind of bringing up. Your involvement with the Falcons. They say, hey, Chuck, why don't you go work with the Falcons? Why don't you go be with them? I mean, obviously, you're doing a lot of work with a lot of future defensive pass rushers right now, and you obviously maintain a lot of love for the organization that you once called home.
All love.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in being home, being a dad.
I understand that.
It's a great job as NFL coaches, college coaches. I've had my chance at both of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not built to be in the building 16 hours a day, every day. I'm not built to, just study film all day. I like pass rush, but also it's kind of like this, man. And this is not a shot at coaches, but this is about me. Mm. I just have this conscience about being like a dad, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I would hate at the end of my when I get to the end, you hear like, I've been around coaches, kids that say, man, my dad was never there. I would I would almost hate myself. For my kids to say, Dad, you weren't there.
Yeah.
And there's a sacrifice in any football coach's life. There's a sacrifice because this isn't a regular 9-to-5 job.
I think you're
it's not.
Absolutely right.
So that really has a lot to do with it. I'll be a consultant for the Falcons. Hey, I'll come in. Look, I'll come in at 8. I'll come in at 6.
Yeah.
But I got to go home in a normal 9-to-5.
No,
I
think that's commendable, and I think that's exactly right. And by the way, we're going to talk more about Chuck's family before we're done the show today. But I think that's a really important thing that these coaches, it seems like a glamorous life. They obviously make a lot of money and they get a lot of attention, but there is a trade-off in family life.
It's a sacrifice.
There is definitely
really is.
A tough situation involved with that. Speaking of coaches, how about an interesting rumor here, at least for a moment? Benjamin Albright, a guy that's got a pretty big following on Twitter, a guy that talks a lot of NFL, says, according to his sources, the Falcons would expect to have Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels among their top head coaching candidates this offseason. So does that seem like a good idea to you, Josh McDaniels, the Patriots offensive coordinator? Is that a name worth considering here? This is a guy that left the Indianapolis Colts high and dry. Before they hired Frank Reich as their head coach, they were going to hire McDaniels. McDaniels took the job, backed off of it. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on with that Patriots organization. And by the way, the Patriots offense this season hasn't even been all that great. Maybe it's just Tom Brady getting old. The Patriots offense has sputtered a little bit. How would you feel about McDaniels as a potential replacement for Dan Quinn?
Well, I try not to get caught up into what happened with him in Indianapolis because everybody saw that Andrew Luck was on his last leg, and he didn't even play that year.
Right.
So the cupboard was kind of bare when I look at it from Josh McDaniels' opportunity with Indianapolis. So he was with Denver. Things didn't work out, right? But one thing I will say, seems like coaches, after they have that one experience, they got to get better. So to me, it seems like he would have to get better. But now, coming here as opposed to right now in Indianapolis, we don't have Tom Brady. But we do have Julio. We do got Ridley. So he would come in here. He would have some weapons. He's got a defense to work with, which Indy has a crazy defense. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a problem with that because we haven't talked about that. I haven't even thought about Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
But I like him better than Mike McCarthy.
I do too.
I mean, if it came down to a former coach who had a job, I would rather have that.
But boy, doesn't it seem like Mike McCarthy is the exact kind of person that Arthur Blank would probably like. That just feels like a Blank type hire, right? It's been a head coach before.
You trying to say old guy?
I don't know. It just sort of feels like the kind of person that would win Blank over is a guy like Mike McCarthy.
Nah, I get it.
Coach for a big prestige organization like the Packers. A lot of NFL teams have had a chance to kind of get back involved with Mike McCarthy, and they've chosen to pass.
He's had a lot of success, though. To me, one thing I will say about Arthur Blank in this situation, this is going to be the biggest coaching decision he's ever had, because something that you always talk about, and I agree 100%. The Falcons right now have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones in their prime. Grady's in his prime.
Yep.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? For a D lineman, this is got to be I think Grady's 5th year of Vick and all. Tagging those guys are coming into their prime.
Yeah.
So this is a time when and this isn't this isn't a development coach. That's the only thing I'll say about the college guys.
Yeah.
We don't need a coach that's in development. We need a coach that can come in right now, understands how to, be a part of an organization, row in the right direction, not want to make huge changes, because the Falcons are still built, in my opinion, with the right coach, the right attitude, the few more picks here and there. But the biggest thing is the development of the guys they already got. And this is a team that I believe can go from literally worse the next year winning 9, 10, 11 games.
Yeah, no, I think so, especially if you hire that offensive-minded coach. So I'm actually a little bit surprised. You know, Corey Carter in our Facebook comment section doesn't like the idea of a Josh McDaniels. J.D. Moody over here also kind of citing the way in which he kind of betrayed Indianapolis after Indianapolis thought it made that hire. A lot of folks don't like McDaniels, maybe more negativity towards McDaniels than I probably realized there was going to be. Ultimately, though, at least even considering a McDaniels, this is just a rumor, it's not anything coming official from Larry Branch on this, is at least for me a step in the right direction, because one way or another, the next coach of the Atlanta Falcons needs to be an offensive-minded coach. He can bring with him whatever defensive coordinator he wants to, and that guy can put his stamp on the defense. But it's got to be an offensive-minded coach, because you've got Ryan. He's $30-something million against the cap next year. You've got Julio Jones, big contract for him. You've got Calvin Ridley really coming into his own as one of the premier receivers in this league. I think that Calvin Ridley is a number one type receiver in the NFL. Use him the way he needs to be used. If you have the offensive-minded coach who has a good offensive plan in place, I think we can see a return, at least on the offensive side of the ball, to some of what Atlanta was in 2016. But you got to pick that coach to do it. You're not going to see that improvement unless new ideas are brought into the building, new ideas are brought in the organization. So if it's not Josh McDaniels, and I guess I probably agree with some of the skepticism we're seeing in the comment section about that, it needs to be some kind of offensive-minded guy, I believe.
Well, the Falcons are going to have to put up points. Right now, look at the teams that are winning. You look at last night, the Ravens, right?
Yeah.
Look at San Fran. Look at the Saints. Look at all these teams that are putting up, big numbers.
Right.
I think the Falcons' quickest way to get to the Super Bowl is a passing offense with the guys like Julio that are in their prime and a defense that can make plays when they need to. You understand what I'm saying? Because San Fran's defense, they gave up a big stack a big stack the other day to the Saints. So I agree with what you're saying. But I'm not letting the defense off the hook. We done had too much investment in this defense, so I'm going with offense right now over it, but they need to – the defense is not necessarily about the draft, but it's about development. I need to see these young cats develop.
Yeah. By the way, we first started talking about the whole stinking for Lincoln thing on here, my kind of sort of half kidding, half serious push for the Falcons to hire Lincoln Riley. That seemed like more of a pipe dream at the time. But but last night, Riley was in Atlanta. Now, he wasn't asked about the Atlanta job in particular, but he was asked, hey, are rumors connecting you to NFL teams? And it's mostly Dallas, I'll admit that. But are rumors connecting you to NFL jobs? Are they going to be a distraction in the playoff? He said no and didn't offer anything else on it, just a one-word response from him. So pretty clearly the opportunity to shut down talk of going to the NFL, Lincoln Riley chose not to do that. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. You gave me my choice of the Dallas job or the Atlanta job. Atlanta's the better organization right now. You've got a franchise quarterback in place. I don't believe that's what Dak Prescott is. You've got a more sane ownership situation, a more level-headed ownership situation. I believe that's what Arthur Blank provides in comparison to Jerry Jones. If Lincoln Riley really is considering going to the NFL, I don't think you have to have a running quarterback to run the Lincoln Riley offense. You can make a case that Jalen Hurts is the first true running quarterback he's had. Athletic guy in Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, not feet planted to the floor, but it's not like every quarterback that Riley's ever worked with are running quarterbacks necessarily. I think that Riley could absolutely adapt to what Matt Ryan still possesses in his skill set in these final years of his prime. Riley, as long as we're talking about names, Greg Roman from Baltimore, as long as we're talking about names from that offensive side of the ball, we're talking about potential solutions for Atlanta's biggest problems.
I hear you. And I know Atlanta's a beautiful city. Mm-hmm. Buckhead is doing okay. You know what I mean? Everybody, it's one of the most, people are moving here like no other. But Lincoln Riley ain't moving here. If I'm Lincoln Riley, and when you look at Dallas, let me tell you why Lincoln Riley, this is different now. You got to remember, you're looking at the Cowboys of the past. Lincoln Riley, I can tell you this. I don't know who his sports agent, I don't know who his agent is, but I can tell you this. If he goes to Dallas, the rules of engagement are going to change with how Jerry Jones handles the coach. Because for him to get Lincoln, it's going to take a whole lot. And I can tell you this, one of them is going to probably have to do with a little bit of personnel. Yeah. Right? So why would you leave Oklahoma when you making millions? All you got to do is recruit. So I just think the rules there are going to change when it comes to how Jerry Jones deals with a coach. Right? Now hold up, B.
All right.
Let me, just
floor is yours.
I got you. No, you had the floor. Okay, so now you just said Lincoln Riley is a quarterback guru, but then you said the quarterback at Dallas just wasn't on that level with Matt Ryan.
Right, yeah.
So Lincoln is the quarterback guru. He's going to develop, right? He's going to develop Dak Prescott. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, in the one piece that sorry, Falcon fans, I am a former Falcon. I play here 8 years, the whole 9. But the brand of the Dallas Cowboys is international. There's so many things that come with it. I mean, it just is what it is. Okay, now, I threw that in. Let me backtrack a little bit. The Dallas Cowboys got a defense that is pretty good. They just need tuning up. I'd get rid of, I would ask Rod Marinelli to retire. Defensive, pass rush guru, little old head guy. Yeah. But to me, I mean, both jobs are good. I would say you can't go wrong with the Falcons. But I don't know. It just seems to me the zest right now, the Cowboys, and that zest to win. I mean, Jerry Jones is coming out, challenges guys and showing everybody. I wish Arthur would at least give us a little more. I want to feel a little more of that zest like Jerry Jones.
Let me give you 2 quick responses, and I'd love to hear what you say about that. So you say, well, if he goes to Dallas, then Jerry Jones is going to have to be more hands-off with Riley than he is other coaches. But Jimmy Johnson, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Now, I know I'm going back a couple decades on this, but Jerry Jones wasn't hands-off with him. Johnson's a Hall of Fame coach in my mind. College football national champion, which Lincoln Riley's never going to be. Pro football Super Bowl winner multiple times. Jerry Jones aggravated him all the time. Is he going to treat Lincoln Riley different than he treated Jimmy Johnson? And then the second thing is, while the brand of the Cowboys is certainly international, Atlanta is probably the biggest of all the major cities in the country, probably the biggest for college football. Lincoln Riley be treated as a big deal in Atlanta. Atlanta knows who Lincoln Riley is. Atlanta's watching college football every week. Yeah. Lincoln Riley be treated like a big deal in this city. He'd be treated like a hero, a conquering hero, coming here to Atlanta.
Okay, I like that.
All right.
Number 1.
Yeah.
You talked about Jimmy Johnson 25 years ago?
Yeah.
Listen, man, we were still listening to tapes back in the day. DVDs hadn't came out.
That's true.
Come on, man. I was still wearing a shag curl box, man. Right? Coming up, hanging out on Memorial Drive, trying to get some tapes, man, from King Edward J's place. All right, for the Atlanta folks who know about that. All right, so the game has changed.
Yeah.
Right now, the leverage that coaches have, the agents are cutthroat. I can tell you this right now. The time when Jimmy Johnson came out, he didn't have as much leverage, right? He didn't. He did not, because times have basically changed.
Yeah.
So it was a privilege for him to go to Dallas. Right now, Jimmy Johnson at that time, things with Jerry Jones was the big money guy. But I just think the evolution, and this is something, hey man, can I say this is 100% correct? But I got to feel this, with the evolution of these agents, and let's just say, I don't know who Lincoln Riley has as an agent. Yeah. But I can tell you this right now. If he got any of the agents I know that are good, the Todd France, the Jimmy Sexton, the Joby Brandon, I mean, the athletes first, and these guys, I can go on and on and on. They're not going to let Lincoln Riley go there where Jerry Jones can absolutely punk him like he's doing his coach now, put his coach on the hot seat because he owns all the leverage. Lincoln Riley has all the leverage. Literally, he has 100% leverage because he can make those demands. He might not get that. Yeah. But he has the option to say, you know what? I'm going to Atlanta. Sure. Or I'm staying in Oklahoma. Yeah. You got some leverage.
You have some leverage. It's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite's the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. It's a great choice for you if you're getting together to watch Falcons on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of good comments rolling in. I want to make sure we get a couple more stories in, though, before we get out of here. So let me move on for now. There's an interesting piece in the AJC. So Michael Vick is going to be one of the captains for the Pro Bowl coming up. And there's like this huge petition that got started, like hundreds of thousands of signatures, I believe, if I saw this correctly, about pushing back on the NFL for allowing Vick to be involved in the Pro Bowl. And good for Roger Goodell, which is not something really any show like this says very much, because Goodell, in many cases with good reasons, an unpopular commissioner. But Goodell has essentially shrugged all this off and said, Michael Vick paid his debt to society. These people need to move on. He didn't say that, but that's essentially a paraphrase of kind of what Goodell said here, is that Vick absolutely belongs in this role right now. He's paid his debt to society. I actually appreciate Roger Goodell for stepping up and speaking up on behalf of Michael Vick on this. And listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite. When Vick was going through the dogfighting stuff, I was as mad at him as anybody was, in terms of throwing away the prime years of his career, in terms of sort of an unspeakable cruelty. I'm not going to go back and relitigate all this, but everything that needed to be said about that was certainly said by then. But this was years ago. You talk about back in the cassette tape days. That may not have been
No,
cassette tape days.
Mike was in the
That's
CD
like
days.
CD
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
right? That's CD days. It may not be cassette tape, but it's CDs. That's a long time ago. And I don't know that anyone has worked harder, not just pay his debt to society, but actually repay a lot of creditors. This is a guy that's worked really hard to kind of rebuild the standing of his good name. And you know what? People making a petition about him not being involved as a captain in a scrimmage game, get a life. I mean, get a life if that's what you're going to complain about. Good for Goodell for sticking up for Michael Vick.
Prison. That's all I say.
Yeah.
Mike Vick didn't get suspended. Mike didn't get suspended for 6 games. Mike didn't get to, whatever, even like Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Again, and what he did is, it speaks for itself. What
Right.
Mike Vick was involved with. Prison.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Vick did real time.
23 months in federal
Michael
prison.
Vick went to prison. So he served, man, listen, in NFL history, there have been some things that guys have done really bad, right?
Yeah.
Michael Vick went to prison, and to me, he served his time. I'm glad the commissioner, Roger Goodell, and the guy below him, Troy Vincent, are speaking up for Michael Vick, because Mike cool. I mean, listen, man, Mike Vick the coolest dude. Mike Vick is the coolest Falcon of all time.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just smooth. I saw Mike at the...
Deion's on the phone. He wants to talk to you.
This is a different kind of cool.
Deion wants to talk
This
to you.
is a different kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Mike is like... Deion is like, let's just say, he's too MC Hammer cool.
Right.
Mike Vick is kind of like...
A little timeless coolness.
Yeah, Mike Vick is, like the new age.
Some of the stuff
cool.
that you see from Deion, as much as I think it's cool, it's sort of very much of that era, right? Like your early 90s when you're looking at some of that kind of stuff.
Extra over boisterous, I'll say.
Yeah.
But man, Mike Vick, I mean, he's the coolest dude ever.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, do we got time for a quick
60-second
60-second story about Mike Vick? So I'm at the Super Bowl this year, right? So I'm in the green room, getting ready to do a little appearance. So Mike's in there. My kids wanted to talk to Mike. And I, years ago, lived in the same neighborhood with Mike. So I got to know Mike. I was on the radio doing as a color analyst at the time with the Falcons. So I see Mike, and I was like, what's up, Mike? My sons, they love Mike Vick. Mike is, what's up, Chuck, man? What's going on, man? It's good to see you. So I'm like, we getting a lot of small talk. And I said, Mike, what's going on with the AAFL, man? I know you're the coordinator. What's going on? Mike was like, man, Chuck, man, they know they want to give me no headsets, man. They want to use. Mike was laughing so hard. He's like, man, Chuck, man, they got me messed up, man. They got me in the AAFL. Man, Chuck, they won't let me rock my headsets no more, dude. Mike was laughing, man. It was funny because Mike was just so cool. He's like, man, I said, Mike, he said, I'm supposed to come out there, man. I'm supposed to run the offense. Then he was laughing. Said, I couldn't make the commitment like that. But, dude, when I tell you Mike was funny, that's how humble he is.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I was asking about and he was like, man, I was like, you going to be the coordinator? He's like, man, they done took my headsets, Chuck, man. I was like,
come to find out, AAFL couldn't afford the headsets. Come to find out.
Man, Mike Vick is the truth, man.
Yeah.
Listen, there's
I'm going to tell you this right now, too.
Bro.
For all the young folks watching right now, I'll still take him over Lamar Jackson, at least for right now. Now, Jackson was good. Jackson was good last night.
I switched.
I'm
sorry.
But I'm going to still take Vick over Jackson, at least for right now.
I'm a broken Vick fan.
Yeah.
I love Mike to death, but I'm broken. My sons have broke me. The highlights have broke me.
He was good last night.
Everybody has broke me.
He was good last night.
Jackson's that guy to me.
I want to finish by previewing some of the stuff for this weekend in the NFL. Before that, huge shout out here. Chuck talked about his desire to be a family man and really be there and help usher his kids into adulthood. Well, an example of that working out really well here. Wofford is a tremendous school, and Chuck Smith IV, a terrific player for North Gwinnett this year, on his way to play for the Terriers here. A great program, a successful high school career. Chuck, how does it feel as a dad to see your son here getting a chance to go play football at the college level like that and be a part of a great academic institution and a North Gwinnett high school team that had a terrific year? I know you must be beaming with pride.
Yeah, the best thing to say is describe it as proud.
Yeah.
I'm a proud dad, and I think it has a lot to do with the kind of person my son is.
Yeah.
Everybody likes him, and he's a tough kid. He likes to play the game.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to tell you this, perseverance, man.
Yeah.
Perseverance from playing, having to figure out what position you're going to play, right?
Yeah.
In Little League, he was an O lineman. Then he, gets to be a D lineman. Then he's at, he's trying to find his way at a great school like North Gwinnett. But the kind of person he is speaks volumes for what has happened to him now.
Yeah.
In Walford, I'm really appreciative of how, they've given this opportunity. My son is passionate. You know, he got that dog in him, and he killed us with this play right here. He took away a sack. We'd have 12 right now.
Okay.
He'd have slammed, dude. But
he got flagged for that?
It's a great feeling, man, because you got to think, when he started 5 years old.
Yeah.
5 years old out there in Tucker, you know, in a park out in Tucker, man. And
well, I will say this.
Balling. He's a great kid.
Having worked in the media for a long time, I understand this, that it's not easy to be Chuck Smith the fourth. When you're playing high school football in the same sort of city as your dad, people remember you for playing in the SEC, for playing for the Atlanta Falcons. That's a tough name to carry around, and you have to live up to all that. So I'm sure that wasn't always an easy thing for him. But, you know, for like so many of the parents who are watching us right now, they hope to see their sons one day the same place that Chuck is, moving on from high school to college. So congratulations on to him and to you and the whole family for seeing this take place. It's a great thing to be able to see. And for everybody who finishes up high school careers here this weekend, state championships in the city of Atlanta, best of luck to all of you and congratulations on all of that. All right, quick final thing before we go. Big weekend around the NFL, week 15 around the league. We've talked a lot about Atlanta and San Francisco. Let's hit some of these other games. Of course, Baltimore last night absolutely fed it to the New York Jets. So let's move on, talk about other games. Seattle at Carolina, New England at Cincinnati, Tampa at Detroit. Stop me to you when you see one worth watching. Chicago, Green Bay is not a terrible one, I don't guess. Denver, Kansas City. Denver's actually played a little bit better as of late. Miami and the Giants. You know, Buffalo, Pittsburgh got flexed down in the Sunday night game. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that one.
I like that. That's a good game. Pittsburgh, one of the great stories happening right now.
Honestly, Tomlin, I think you got to make a strong case for Mike Tomlin as coach of the year. Titans and Texans. Tennessee, you said this earlier, they've played very well second half of the season. Philadelphia, Washington's awful game. Cleveland, Arizona, awful game. Jacksonville, Oakland. Oakland's kind of falling apart here as of late. Rams, Dallas, that's kind of a fun game, although Dallas has been kind of a mess. Minnesota, Chargers, then you got Indianapolis and New Orleans. So not the greatest weekend. This might be actually a fairly decent weekend to sneak off, do some Christmas shopping if you feel like you need to.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you might play a little putt-putt, might go skating, a little roller skating, old school roller skating. Well, you know, I mean, airsoft.
You got to do some of that
kind of stuff. It's a good time, man. My boys ain't playing no football, so, you know.
Army Navy on Saturday. That's maybe Army Navy on Saturday may be the best game of the weekend.
I'm not ever going to disrespect that game, but I won't be able to watch.
Support the troops. All right, good stuff here. Thanks for being here as part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Falcons will give their shot against the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. We'll be back on Monday at 1 p.m. to talk about it. Tell your friends. We do this every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. For Chuck Smith, the former Falcon great, my name is Brandon Adams. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again on Monday.